What's up guys and welcome to the Moody channel. Today I have something very special for you guys. The first boss tactic of Sanctum of Domination. Now this is the first testing on the PTR on this raid, so things might change. Well, things will most likely change, but an updated version will come out before this hits live. I really hope you will enjoy this video, and if you do, I will definitely make more of these kind of boss tactics. Let's check it out. The Tarragrue is the first boss we will encounter in SOD, Sanctum of Domination. This boss is actually the annoying big guy that comes after you and one punch kills you when you're out of lives in Torghast. So now it's our time to fight back. Blizzard added something really cool for this fight. You will fight this boss with the use of Anima Power. I freaking love it! So how does it work then? The area linked to this boss is pretty huge, with many ads that are patrolling around, and you have to kill all ads before boss spawns in the center, where the actual boss fight will take place. There are also urns and souls that you can click on, but it looks like they have no use, at least so far in the testing. You get Anima Power from a special type of ad, the Goliath ad. He is bigger than the other ones, so you can't miss him. There are in total 4 Goliath ads in this area, and each one of them will drop one really big orb. Click on that big orb, will drop a smaller one, and in there you'll find your Anima Power. You can choose from 3 Anima Powers from each orb. The Anima Power is not class specific. They are general ones that everyone can use. I put it in 2 parts. One are Anima Powers that increase your character power with damage or healing or tanking. And the other parts of Anima Power you can choose are actually specific for the boss fight, for handling the boss abilities. You can handle the boss abilities without these Anima Powers, but there are some things that only some classes can do when it comes to interrupts or immunity or removing enrage, stuff like that. And if you don't have these classes, that's why these Anima Powers are good to choose. They're sort of like backups if you don't have these certain classes to the fight. It is RNG on what 3 powers you can choose from every time, but just outside the boss room in the center of the area, there are Anima Siphons. When you click on them, you can choose to remove all Anima Power. You get new ones by running back to those huge Anima Orbs that dropped from the 4 Goliath ads you killed. The problem is that players will run front and back between the Siphon and the Orbs until they're satisfied before you can actually pull the boss, and this can actually take a really long time. Also, you can't choose to remove only one Anima Power. You either choose to remove all, or you keep the ones you have. We don't know if this is just for testing purposes or not, or if you can actually swap your Anima Powers, but the location of these Siphons, it feels like, you know, they have a purpose there. And the question is, how will this look in the end when live comes out? Okay, so once everyone have their Anima Orbs, everyone's satisfied and ready for boss, it's showtime. The boss is in a platform in the center with 4 exits. The area to fight the boss in is not that huge. When it comes to positioning, both melee and ranged will spread around the boss. In this encounter, you will fight only the boss, no ads or anything like that. The boss has 6 abilities on LFR. Normal mode will add 1 more ability, and heroic mode will add 1 more ability compared to normal. So in heroic mode, you will deal with 8 abilities in total, and we're gonna check them all out here and all the tactics for them. Now the first boss ability we're gonna talk about is called Overpower. Now this is for you tanks. The boss will do an Overpower on the main tank, and that leaves a debuff called Crushed Armor. This does damage taken by 200% for 20 seconds. So how do we deal with this mechanic? Well, you just tank swap every time the boss does Overpower Slam. Next one up is called Chains of Eternity. Now this boss ability was a little bit bugged on the PTR testing, but basically the boss will target a random player and you get an arrow on your head. After 8 seconds, the boss will throw a chain on that player, and that does stun, heavy damage, you get pulled into boss, and does deadly damage. So how do we prevent this? Well, a player has to stand in front of it and get the hit, but that player needs to be able to not get stunned. To do that, that player needs some kind of immunity, such as Ice Block. And as I mentioned before, this fight requires some class abilities to do certain things, and this is one of them. But there is a backup for it, and that is the other types of Anima Powers. There's one Anima power called Ever Beating Heart. Now shooting this, you'll become immune to fear and stun effects. And it looks like this is the one you have to pick and stand in front of the boss, and then you don't get stunned, which means you won't get pulled into boss. Then we have the Predator's Howl. Now, this is the debuff the boss puts on several players. You get a purple circle around you when you have it. If any other player gets inside that circle, you get feared for 8 seconds. Even players with that debuff goes into another player with that debuff will also get feared. So how do you prevent this? How do you handle the tactics for this? Basically, stay spread. Also, there are some classes that can dispel this. And as I said before, if you don't have the class for the fight, there's a backup for it with Anima Power. And in this case, it's the Ever Beating Heart again. You become immune to stun and fear effects. This is really good, especially if you have a lot of melee players. When I did my testing, we had loads of melee players. And when we got this debuff, it was literally a shit show. So having this Anima Power will help you quite a lot. Especially when you're heavy melee. The Hungering Mist. Alright, everything turns dark. There are boss images on each corner that will cast a blast of deadly damage. And they will cast this blast 3 times. How do we handle it if we get hit? Because it's pretty deadly damage. A little light will show up on the platform. The entire raid must run there before the blast. After a while, the light goes away and a new light shows up. So the raid needs to run there. Use speed movement abilities to help people out, such as the Druid Roar or the Chamois Totem. And same thing here. If you don't have the class abilities for it, there is a backup with Anima Powers. The first one up is called Satchel of the Hunt. You'll grant all allies within 20 yards an additional 30% movement speed. This is really good, especially since you are stacked when you run around to different lights. The other one, you take 90% less damage from area effect attacks, called the Oddly Intangible Key. This is really good, especially for classes that are really slow. Yes, I'm looking at UDKs. Next one up is called Grasp of Death. The boss will target a random player and put a debuff, and this debuff does very high damage over 40 seconds. So how do we deal with this? First things first, healers beware. The damage is really nasty. Second of all, it has to be interrupted. Now, this is one of these abilities that did work quite well on the testing, but the Dungeon Journal says it can be interrupted and should definitely be interrupted because the damage is really high if you don't. Target a player. Beware also to use any defensive to stay alive in case you didn't get healed or in case it didn't get interrupted in time. And as usual, if you don't have the classes that can handle the mechanics, even though quite a lot of people can handle mechanics when it comes to interrupts, but for some reason if you can't, it's actually a really good Anima Power that can help you out. The Erratic Howler. Now this one does damage, so it's really good because it does also damage and interrupts in random intervals. Fury of the Ages. Now this is an ability the boss puts on himself. It's an enrage buff that increases damage and haste by 25% and it also stacks. So basically it will do a lot of damage on the main tank. How do we deal with this? Well, of course, we gotta remove that enrage buff. We have druids and we have hunters that can help out with that. And as usual, if there are abilities that your raid can't handle, there are backups for it via the Anima Powers. In this case called Disembodied Mystic Hands. Your attacks have a chance to steal a beneficial magic or enrage effect from your target, applying it to yourself. The best part with this is that it applies to yourself. So if you actually remove this one, you get damage and haste increased by 25%. Now this next boss ability you'll only see on heroic mode or above. It's called Remnant of Forgotten Torments. The boss will spawn 1 out of 3 types of memories: Upper Reach Might, Mortregar Echoes, and the Soulforge Heat. He will spawn 1 memory every 30 seconds. The difference between these 3, when you just look at them, is that all of them have a circle around them with 5 orbs. And on the middle, you'll either see a dark weapon or a dark orb or a fire orb. We start with the Upper Reach Might. When this one spawns, it will do 50% increased physical damage taken to entire raid. When you stand in this circle, you will get a stacking debuff that does 10% increased physical damage taken. There are 5 orbs, meaning you have to soak it 5 stacks before it's gone. So the tactics, you stand on it to remove it, you have to do it 5 times, meaning 5 stacks, and also it doesn't have to be the same player. Different players can go in and soak in and out. Players with good defensives and immunities can definitely do this job as well. And as usual, if you don't have the classes for this ability, there are backups for it through Anima Powers. We have Ephemeral Effigy. You take 25% less physical damage and suffer 15% more magical damage. So in this case, you take less physical, but you suffer more magical. Taking physical damage has a chance to increase your movement speed by 25% for 6 seconds. So this one's really good for the players that will soak the physical damage. There's another one called the Stone Ward. This shields you for 20% of your maximum health, and this absorb refreshes every 30 seconds. Pretty nice. Next memory, the Tarragrue Echoes, is a little bit similar to the last one, but instead of physical damage taken, the raid will take magical damage. It's still 5 stacks to remove it. The debuff will do increased magical damage taken instead of physical, and it also stacks. The tactics? Well, same as before. Stand to remove it, 5 times 5 stacks, and of course, different players can go in, take some stacks, go out again, and then another one comes in. Defensives and immunities are really good for this, and as usual, if you don't have the players or the classes for it, there are Anima Powers. As we saw before, Stone Ward, still good here, because it shields you for 20% of your max health, and absorb refreshes every 30 seconds. But the second one though, now you'll take 25% less magical damage, and suffer 15% more physical damage. So it's the opposite it was before. You have to see which one you have when it comes to Anima Powers. If you have the one that takes 25% less physical damage, well then you should soak the physical one. This case, 25% less magical damage, well then you soak the magical one. And the last memory, the Soulforge Heat. When this one spawns, it will do moderate fire damage periodically to all players. 5 orbs, 5 stacks. The debuff in this case will do low fire damage every 5 seconds for 1.5 minutes, and of course it stacks. So what are the tactics for this one? Stand on it to soak it. 5 orbs, 5 stacks. Different players can go in and out and take some each. Same thing with the defensives and immunities. The Anima Powers for this one though is only the Stone Ward. It shields you for 20% of your max health and absorbs refreshes every 30 seconds. The last boss ability is called the Jailer's Gaze. You will see this ability at normal mode or above. At 10% health, the boss will do a 6-second cast, and after that cast, he will knock everyone backwards. This will remove all your Anima Powers. After that, he's gonna walk pretty slow and chase you down one by one and one shot kill you. So how do we handle this? Bloodlust, Time Warp, and Heroism, you pop it here. You kite the boss as long as possible before it kills you, and hopefully your raid has killed the boss before it has hunted every one of you down and wiped the raid in the end. And there you go, guys. I hope that this video helped out and gave you a little bit food for thought. If you liked it, I would love if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, if you want some more, of course, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you will see when more videos will come out regarding Shadowlands. And you are more than welcome to join me on Twitch and hang out with me. Everything from asking questions to game with me, and of course all these raids are coming out, all these viewer stuff we're gonna do together. It will be awesome to do with you guys. When it comes to social media, Twitter is where I hang out mostly. If you like to read guides, I have loads and loads and loads for you on my website, worldofmoody.com. Until next time, guys, take care.